Hello, I'm Hadley Marchek from the American Chemical Society. Welcome to this media briefing from ACS Fall 2022. Mealworms are beetle larvae that are often considered to be creepy, crawly nuisances. But these insects are actually edible and could be a good alternative to meat for protein. Today, researchers from Wonkwang University in South Korea report that they've cooked up mealworms with sugar, creating a meat-like flavoring. It could someday be used in convenience foods as a tasty source of extra protein. We're joined today by Dr. In-hee Cho. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for giving an opportunity to introduce my research.
Dr. In-hee Cho, how did you get the idea for this project?
To put it simply, these studies started when the Rural Development Administration, with its Korean Government Institute, asked me to profile the blood compositions of mealworm by the life cycles. But a more detailed reason is like this. Global food market continues to grow, but it is still necessary to explore new food materials and or to develop new food products because food resources are gradually being depleted as the world's population increases. In 2013, FAO suggested edible insects as future food resources, especially to meet the needs of global consumers of animal protein. Moreover, insect is truly eco-friendly and more efficient in comparison to typical livestock. Therefore, the consumption or application of edible insects as a food is more and more popular in the world. In Korea, a total of 10 insects have been accepted as food ingredients. Especially mealworm is recently accepted in 2016, and from around this time, related research using mealworm was supported by the government. But there is still somehow a problem. Many consumers do not like their physical appearance. So most insects have been used in crushed or powder forms as food additives.
Right. Most people are only willing to eat edible insects when they're hidden from view inside other foods. Why is it beneficial for people to even eat edible insects like mealworms?
Edible insects are a complete protein. So they could be applied as precursors of reaction flavor. Reaction flavor refers to the flavor produced by heat treatment. This reaction flavor is generated mainly through the Maillard reaction during thermal treatment, cooking or thermal processing, um, and contributes to roasted, baked, or meaty flavor characteristic to a food. So we started the series of studies to investigate the potential of mealworm as a precursor of reaction flavor and develop a flavoring material of a mealworm reaction flavor with desirable meaty flavor.
How did you and your team actually investigate transforming mealworms into a possible flavoring or seasoning for foods?
In general, flavor is an ultimately sensory characteristic, including taste and aroma, caused by chemical components. So, in order to understand the flavor characteristic of a food, it is necessary to analyze each individual component. But since we do not perceive the individual components of the food one by one after eating it, but simultaneously perceive it collectively. So it is also required not only to analyze the individual components, but also to understand the food comprehensively using sensory evaluation. Therefore, we use the combined research approach between instrumental and sensorial analysis, which is called as flavor mix.
Flavoromics. I really like that word. It's this combination then of both figuring out, the individual compounds as well as what they taste like, correct? How did you implement this sort of method?
First of all, we try to understand the difference in flavor characteristic of mealworms according to the cooking methods commonly used in our kitchen, such as steaming, roasting, and frying, of course using a flavor mix approach. And then investigate the best heat treatment to generate the meaty flavor. According to previous studies, if amino acid is added when food-derived protein or peptide is applied as a precursor of reaction flavor, more positive meaty flavor characteristics could be enhanced. So secondly, we try to explore the most appropriate amino acid for producing more desirable meaty flavor by preparing mealworm reaction flavors without and with various amino acids and comparing their flavor compositions and sensory activities. And then a study was conducted to screen and optimize precursors ratio. Actually, we used the selected amino acid, garlic powder, onion powder, and mushroom powders. And reaction conditions, for example, reaction time, reaction temperature, and water amounts for a desirable mealworm reaction flavor using response surface methodology. It's a kind of a statistical technique. At this time, we reflected consumers' preference.
What's the significance of finding a desirable combination of meaty flavors from cooking mealworms with sugar? How do you actually think this could impact the food industry?
In general, Maillard reaction can be prepared mainly by the Maillard reaction caused between amino groups of amino acid, peptides, or protein, and carbonyl group of reducing sugar and carbohydrates. Previous studies have reported that reaction flavors produced from various food proteins or food-derived peptides contribute to desirable meat-related flavor and color, as well as to the bioactive properties of food. We assumed either insect could be also a good precursor for reaction flavor. On the other hand, as we all know, recent social changes, the increase of single-person households, the expansion of working women, etc., continuously demand the development of a simple and easy-to-cook food. Nevertheless, they also need convenience of food with high quality and emotional satisfaction. These consumer demands make the role of flavoring or seasoning materials more important in the food industry. In particular, the global meat-related flavor market was estimated to be worth $7 billion in 2020 and is projected to reach around $9 billion in 2025, according to markets and markets. Therefore, the development of a meaty flavoring material using either insect is sufficient to meet consumers' demand.
So your team has successfully created this meat-like flavoring from mealworm powder. What are the next steps for your research?
We obtained a lot of meaningful results to develop a meaty flavoring material using mealworms, but shrimp-like flavor characteristics still remains. This characteristic could be an alpha flavor in meaty flavoring materials, although the intensity is weak. Further study to reduce this alpha flavor from mealworm reaction flavor is needed, or we believe another Miram reaction flavor with seafood-like flavor characteristics can be optimized and developed it.
And what do you want people to take away from this conversation today? What do you want them to remember about eating mealworms?
As I mentioned above, we seriously like and need animal protein and meaty flavor in our diet. However, traditional livestock farming produced more greenhouse gas emissions than cars do. Do you know it? On the other hand, insect farming requires just a fraction of the land, water, and feed in comparison to traditional livestock farming. Also, it goes without saying edible insects are superfoods. So, to develop various processed foods using edible insects, it is necessary to recognize the appropriate food culture for edible insects.
Thank you, Dr. In-hee Cho, so much for sharing your research with us.
Thank you for listening to my briefing speech.
Be sure to check out our other media briefings for ACS Fall 2022, which will be posted throughout the meeting at www.acs.org/ACS Fall 2022 briefing.